And we're on. This is the Great Classic Movie Debate. I'm Kenny.
Oh,
I'm Steve.
And we are we are bringing it to you live. We are talking anything and everything about movies. It doesn't have to be classic movies. It can be contemporary movies. It can be ancient movies. Doesn't matter. We try to keep it fun. If you're watching right now, please comment, like, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Rock Debate. Last week's episode, we talked Westerns. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was interesting. So we're going to continue with that tonight. Is that right?
affirmative.
Yes.
Okay. Where do you guys want to start out?
Well, I'm thinking part of what we should talk about, at least for a minute, is why they picked the Western genre. And I haven't done research. I always want to see what you guys come up with. Steve and Kenny, why do you think they picked that genre? Because at some point, like, in the 20s, there wasn't no sound, and it's time not big enough for both. You know what I'm saying? Like, that started.
Why did Hollywood pick it?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's pretty simple.
Why?
Because at the time when motion pictures came about, you actually had real life cowboys.
Yes.
Wyatt
Very
Earp
good.
was still alive. And so you had these romanticized stories, and you could actually sit down and interview and talk to the people that actually lived it. I mean, the Old West, the American Old West is like the equivalent of the Middle Ages in Europe, where you have myths and legends that came from. So
yeah,
that's why I think they picked it.
Oh no! That's absolutely one of the main reasons.
I would add that there had to be a measure of convenience. I mean, nowadays it's convenient to choose New York or L.A. It's everybody knows where they are and what goes on there. So back in those days, the convenience of your location, just choose the West. It doesn't have to be a specific place. It's just somewhere in the West. And you've got the settings and the backdrops and all that available. So
that's a home run. That's exactly why.
Yeah, 100 years ago, Southern California looked like anywhere else in the American Southwest.
Yeah.
Barren, and you could go and shoot and not be bothered by anybody.
I mean, look where the Manson family moved into one of the stuntmen ranch, where they would shot hundreds of movies there. And if you've seen one time in Hollywood, they go up there and you can see, oh my God, there's about, at one time there was like 50 to 100 of these ranches. I'm not sure how many are actually left now. But, and you guys are both right. That's because the terrain is right there. And for those of you who don't know, LA may look lush and pretty. It's a doggone desert. But anyone tell you something different? If it wasn't for the watering, in 25 years, it turned right back into a desert, okay? People don't realize that, because it looks like it's a built-up city, and it's crap put on top of a desert.
Yeah, I mean, you drive 50 miles east outside the city limits, you're in the Mojave Desert, basically.
405 up into the mountains, and you're like, oh, let's shoot a Western right here, next to the Getty. You just turn the camera away from the Getty, there's a mountain desert. You're like, oh, okay. So yeah, and I'm also wondering, like, man, I think it's also something to do with the American independence. So it's totally and uniquely American. You're out there, you got a gun, you got your woman, you got land or cows, and you're on your own.
Right.
And there's bad guys. That's my cows, got my brand on it. Oh yeah, bang. You know what I'm saying? It's like this whole independent thing, and then you got rich people coming in, the land barons, and try to. So it's Americana in a weird way.
And it really is.
And it really is the last, I guess, iconic age of exploration, where nowadays, I mean, if you want to go someplace, you probably can't go anywhere except the bottom of the ocean, where no man has ever set foot on the earth. I mean, people have been to Everest, thousands of people have been to Everest, the North Pole, the South Pole. But, when Hollywood was started, still much of the American Southwest and West was still, a lot of it was still unexplored still at that point. So.
That's right. I don't know. And then this is the first time you saw, like, I guess you had to remember the guy who puts the girl on the railroad tracks and he twists his mustache.
Yeah.
you see the rise of the super villains, you know, these villains. And then at first they made the Native Americans the villains. Okay. And then
Right.
about last time, they morphed into other people and the land barons and these really bad people who thought the hoi polloi should just be killed.
Right. Well, that's pretty much the whole premise of Pale Rider.
Yeah.
Which, listen, I love that movie.
That's
All
one of
right,
my
I
favorites.
love it.
And that's the other thing. It's the first time when the revolver came into vogue. You know, before that was single shot, and like the evolution of the gun from the 1500s to the whenever the guy Colt invented the first revolver. I think in the 1850s, maybe 1840s, because they were so expensive. Only the cavalry, the captains of the cavalry, could have them. Right? They were very expensive. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was gonna say, in the Civil War, did they even have double action? I don't know if they had a double action pistol. I think the single action, you had to cock it each time the fire. I think they had a revolver.
Yes, by the end of the war, I think. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. There was so many subtle changes, even in those 10 or 20 years. I mean, although Steve Scholar and I talked about this, the Gatling gun is not a machine gun. Okay, it's a hand crank. Okay, so you got. Okay, so it's not a machine gun. Okay, so that wouldn't be invented for another 15 or 20 years. Hiram Stevens Maxim actually made the first machine gun.
Now explain the difference between a machine gun, I guess,
With
and a Gatling gun.
With a Gatling gun, you've got to twist the thing, you got to crank it, it moves the next bullet, it strikes, it fires the bullet, right? With a machine gun, all you gotta do is cock it once, and the bullet, when it explodes, the gas from the bullet explodes, and there's gas
It
fire.
drives it. Yeah.
It drives the hammer back. And without, like, I think it's called, military guys jump in here, the sear pin, that stops that hammer from going forward again. Okay, otherwise it would just go click, 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 it would bah, 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 until you ran out of bullets. And the explosion of it drives the hammer back. You don't have to do, remember, once you cock your AR-15, you would, right? Otherwise you would have to cock it every time, like you were just saying, a double action, right? And without that sear pin, and people, and we're not going to talk about that, ATF, and we'll get in trouble with this, but you could easily convert those to full automatic, where the thing is not in the way anymore. And you just keep the trigger and it goes to its empty. Now, a minigun, I think, actually uses the same technology as a Gatling gun. Army guys, write us in and correct me and fill me in. So you know,
were those used in the Old West? I know Gatling guns were. I don't know if a minigun. I've seen
the miniguns didn't come out.
Westerns, so.
No, a minigun didn't come out until like the 70s. I think they were in Vietnam on like the
Okay, I don't claim to be
Cheyenne choppers. Cheyennes were these choppers that had actually, believe it or not, rocket assist, and they had these fancy. It's weird. What do you think about the relationship between?
I only know love guns. I guess. Sorry.
What do you think drove the change from the Native Americans being the bad guys to being neutral to almost being sympathetic, like in Dancing with Wolves? What do you think? Was it politics or is it reality? I'm glad it happened because that was basically the truth.
Well, it may have been a change. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it was also a change of, like the spaghetti westerns. You had, and I can't think of a good example in any of the spaghetti westerns, but you had European directors, and so they had a different take on things. And so, by the time you get to the 70s and even the 80s, everybody's thoughts had changed. I mean, as a kid growing up, I loved Grant, President Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, just because I kind of romanticized the old West. But it wasn't, I got older and I didn't realize some of the things that he kind of did, which he's pretty much responsible for the almost mass extinction of the American buffalo, the bison. And the reason they did that was not because they hated the bison, it was because it was the main food source of the Native Americans. So they were still off of Native Americans. So you start kind of learning those little things, and right. And I've become a pretty big, at least conservationist, and that's different from being an environmentalist. But
Right.
And so you learn these things, and so things about us killing off the wildlife, and so that kind of stuff does bother me. So I think it was, as the public becomes more educated, we recognize that
Yeah. Let
it's
me
not
offer
just a
this.
fantasy.
Let me offer this thought also, and this might sound stupid, and it may be stupid, but so how the Harlem Globetrotters always plays the team, what, the Washington Generals, isn't that who they
Generals,
are?
correct.
Okay. You always know who's going to win, and you always know it's going to be one-sided. And you're there to watch the Globetrotters, but watching the Generals lose over and over and over again, there's no fun in that, whatever. I think that the Native Americans in the movies were the Washington Generals. I just think they were there to be the
That's
losers.
a good analogy. I actually
Yeah.
think
That's a good point. So after a while, people just got tired of it, or
it's like, this again.
Yeah, and it's probably not so much the audience; it's more or less the filmmaker, the director, who has a vision, who is tired of seeing the same thing and wants to say, "Hey, let's do something different." So,
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's really what drove it was.
Right. And for the record, not that this has anything to do with Westerns, but we're sort of talking about this sort of thing right now. The use of Nazis as the villains, it has to end. I mean, it's been going on for as long as I've been alive, and it still goes on to this day.
Even now.
There will be a story with no Germans and with the final reveal, it somehow ties into the Nazis. And I go, oh my God, it's the Nazis again? So seriously, we got to do away with this. It has to end.
They have been extinct now for about 70 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And then when they weren't even really like the sum of all fears, the Tom Clancy book, it was Muslim terrorists who blow it up. But we can't offend the Muslim terrorists, so we'll make them the Nazis.
They were neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were born,
right.
and 5 minutes later they were Nazis. They were neo-Nazis, fresh out of the.
This has to end. I mean, it just has to end. My God.
Because if you watch Hollywood, you would think that there are two things. Growing up, you would think that A, you're going to run into Nazis on a daily basis.
Right.
B, quicksand. That quicksand would be a big problem. I've never encountered either of the two.
No.
Oh, here's what's funny. If you go into La Brea tar pits, in a way, that's quicksand. Like, it's oil. You know what I'm saying? So it's right there in front of everybody. What was the other thing you just said? It was pretty good. The Nazis and
quicksand.
Nazis and quicksand.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, you said something else. Steve said, or Kenny said the Nazis. You said something else before the quicksand. I can't remember. But I want to go back to the Westerns. Another thing that happened, it's so funny. If you think about history between 1870 and 1950, think about the technological inventions. The nuclear bomb, cars, aircraft, metallurgy, steel, right? All these things. I probably have my dates wrong on the steel. Don't correct me. But and the car is an important thing because what's the number one symbol of any Western?
The horse.
Huh?
The horse.
Thank you. God, home run, Steve. So what people don't realize is when Carl Benz invented the first, it was 1895. By 10 years later, the U.S. Army has tried to start slaughtering all their horses. They had to be fed, and they had to be, they had to be taken care of.
Oh, wow.
So there's a really good movie, and I have it here somewhere. A Question of Duty, A Question of Honor. It's Don Johnson. He's this cavalry guy out in the West, and they're like, okay, there, Mr. Captain Wilson, your job is to take these 50,000 horses out there and shoot them all. What? Not shooting any horses. And then he finally told him he would. And so what he does, he corrals them and ships them and just drives them up into Canada where they'll be safe.
Huh.
That's how the movie ends. But like people we romanticize the thing and like, oh, that we just killed all these horses and ate them or shot them, and they're not native to North America. white people brought them here. So think about this: the Native Americans befriended these giant animals and got to use them, and it's just amazing to me.
Well, yeah, I think it was more or less the Spaniards. I mean,
yeah, of
I
course,
guess they're Caucasian, but I don't know.
Other day,
They're
remember George
European
Zimmerman?
anyways.
Hey, George Zimmerman, a white.
Right, Hispanic.
I'm like, what the hell is that?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they were brought
see.
over by Europeans. So
Yeah. And that's and people like, and it is the other thing about the Native Americans. It's so funny how there's a demarcation between the U.S. Native Americans and the Native Americans south of Mexico and all the way down. There's some kind of weird demarcation.
it's called South America.
No, not that. I'm talking about the way these guys rode horses, had bows and arrows, were really good killers, very good hunters, and the people and it's from this Mexico, that's the magical border, and south. It's just weird how the Native Americans are viewed differently, even by us. And obviously, they're not all homogenous.
Well,
Right.
I don't know necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't say that they were viewed differently. It's the Native Americans in North America, continental United States. So just use that term.
Okay.
You know, they did have horses because the Europeans brought them over, and they lived on the plains and they hunted different animals. I don't think they had horses. Some historian's going to correct me, but I don't know if they had horses in South America.
No, they didn't. No. That's my whole point. How come the Central and South America Native Americans didn't get on horseback and fight back? Or maybe they did not know any history.
You have jungles in South America, so you didn't have the. I don't know if a horse would do
Brilliant.
Good point.
much good in South America.
I mean, now South America, of course, as you know, Patagonia, that's all, very, although it's cold as crap there, right? Down that far south.
Well, in fact, and let me correct something. Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, they did hide out down in South America. I think
Bolivia,
Bolivia. So the climate was kind of similar to the Rocky Mountain front anyway. So
I just remember the movie. I think you and I saw it together, Kenny, Apocalypto. Did we see that movie together?
No, but I did see. I think I saw it on video.
I saw it in Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure, but
okay, yeah.
The final shot of that movie is my daughter's coming home from school now and saying, "Yeah, we took their land and we did all this to the Native American." Whoa, stop! I got to make her watch this movie, and the very opening placard of the movie says, "No civilization can be destroyed from the outside until it's destroyed from the inside."
Yeah,
that's the opening. Have you seen Apocalypto, Steve?
Yeah, I saw it with you.
Okay, I was wondering why.
You watched it in my house.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, yeah, I mean,
that's the first thing I made you watch it.
You have one historically, the Native Americans in the movies, in the Westerns, yeah, they were basically the Washington generals. Then you got to this point where you had Hollywood saying the Native Americans were all peace-loving people who all lived in harmony with one another,
right? And nature
stole their land, as if they never fought amongst themselves, which we all know is complete nonsense. So
and not only did they not fight in that movie Apocalypto, I guess it's the Incas or I always them confused
Aztecs, I believe.
Whoever, they go and kidnap these other non-Aztecs and use them for human sacrifices. And like, alone, you're like, what do we have to do with you? We're not even part of your people.
Right.
And that's what the final shot of the movie, if you haven't seen it, the bad guys are chasing the hero down at the beach, and they all stop running at the same time because they see a boat, and they've never seen a boat before, and they think it's God.
The Spanish conquistadors show up.
Yeah, on top of the water. Like, how can that even do that?
And the reaction is if an alien spaceship came down, and we're like,
to them, that's the relative.
Yeah, whatever we're doing right now is irrelevant to what's going to happen next.
Correct.
Right.
From these guys.
It's a really cool book. I don't agree with everything in it, but it's worth a read, called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And it's basically how the white race came to dominate the world. Okay. And he talks about was it Cortez landed first or Pizarro? I get all that mixed up now. I'm too old. Too. And they had 100 men on horseback were able to kill like over 1,000 Native Americans in one day. And as some of the people saw the battle, ran to the next town, and they took the horse diseases with them. And by the time they got to the next town, like half of them were dead from the disease. They didn't have to fire a shot. They have to. And these horses, they'd never seen a horse before, had armor, and they had long swords made of steel. They went through them like knife through butter, no pun intended.
But that is the story of that's human history.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
There is not one civilization in this world that at one time had not been invaded or conquered by somebody else.
Right.
Us so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we going to talk about Westerns? I mean, Apocalypto is kind of a Western to me. It's
not to mention it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just swerve back then. What's our next Western?
Well, I wanted to reference something that I did not realize, or maybe I had forgotten. We had talked about the movie The Bear last time.
Yeah, I watched it over the past week. My wife
great.
and I. Oh my God, it was great.
I love it. I have it on DVD here.
But excellent.
Super jelly.
I did not realize that the director,
Jean-Jacques Annaud, right?
Yeah, he actually directed Enemy at the Gates as well.
Yes. He's a great
Wow.
Which is a completely different movie. Most of his movies have to do with animals, and there's very little dialogue. But he's an incredible director. But I had
I'll say
Vasily Zaitsev. Man. So yeah, the movie I want to talk about Westerns is Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
A comedy Western. Are there others? There was Cat Ballou, right? I think.
Yes.
Was that a comedy?
I never saw that.
Cat Ballou was a comedy. Yeah.
Blazing Saddles. It's just perfect in every way.
He spoofed a bunch of existing movies.
Yes, but that's
and did it with no holds barred.
And you can't show that. Like he's even said, I can't release this movie now.
Right.
And the movie is so brilliant on so many levels. And the heroes are a Jewish man and a black guy.
Right. Well, that movie stands the test of time because it's
absolutely
50 years later. It's still hilarious. It's still so funny.
I watched it about 6 months ago and I was crying.
Yeah.
And to me, I think the funniest kind of gag or scene in that movie is one that it's very subtle. It's when they put the toll booth up.
Oh my God. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie. My favorite scene in the whole movie.
Does anybody have a dime? Somebody's got to go back.
Shitload of dimes.
Load of dimes.
And no other actor could have pulled that line off except for Slim Pickens, right?
Yep, exactly.
Just like when he's on top of the nuclear missile and just straight he's fighting the nuclear missile down. Yeah, come on, man. He's fighting the nuclear missile down. So yeah, I just don't, man. Mel Brooks is awesome, and that movie is just. And the acting, the Harvey Korman, like when he's hitting that, when Mel Brooks is trying to hit that thing, which I could never do. I could never do that.
Paddle ball thing?
Yeah. And then he goes, this isn't effective. And then Harvey Korman picks out of here. Pop, 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 pop. It's just like.
I always.
Don't tell.
They should rename the Best Supporting Actor Award to either the Harvey Korman Award or, in Paul's case, the Jackie Gleason Award for.
Yeah.
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah,
right, right.
You think about it, Smokey and the Bandit is kind of a Western, if you think about it. Like,
yeah.
You got this guy on the terrain, and you got the bad sheriff after him. And
the car and the horse represent the same idea. Freedom. Yeah. Same with the pirate ships in the Pirates of the Caribbean. The ship is freedom.
Yeah.
It's freedom to rape and pillage. Oh, I'm sorry. Out loud. Sorry about that.
My wife is standing over my shoulder.
So you know why that movie works. Mel Brooks is a genius on 100 levels, but that movie works because he doesn't have to tell us what a Western is. We already know. We've seen 7,000 of them, right? Just he goes, you've seen Star Trek, Star Wars, all these ridiculous sci-fi movies. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. You already know all this stuff. I'm gonna crash right through you. And
I did want to say, if we want to move on from Blazing Saddles real quick.
Go ahead.
To me, because there are there are not very many Westerns that are released anymore. I think the most significant one over the last decade was The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know if you guys
I never saw it.
Oh, it's
I don't-
incredible. And what I love the most about it is it's really based on a true story. Now, some of it's obviously fictionalized, but the premise of the story, Leonardo DiCaprio, I think he plays Hugh Glass, which was a famous frontiersman. At the beginning of the movie, he gets attacked and mauled by a grizzly bear, and his party leaves him for dead. And so his whole point is he has to track about 500 miles back to his fort, and then he basically finds the people who left him to die, and he avenges them. They killed some of his family as well, and a lot of that is based on a true story. So Hugh Glass was actually a real frontiersman who was mauled by a grizzly bear up in, I think it was in the Black Hills of South Dakota.
Oh,
and
wow.
he tracked like 500 miles back to camp. In the movie, there were numerous run-ins with Native Americans, and he had to escape. And some of that, I'm sure, did not happen, but the actual bear mauling did occur. And I find that whole story fascinating. So.
Wow.
I do want to see it. I just didn't. It's a longer movie. Am I right?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
It is, yeah. And I do find it I kind of find it laughable that they shot part of it in South America because it was supposed to take place in the wintertime. And they had a big thing about climate change and saying that they had to go to South America to film it because they didn't have any snow. But what was also lost on them was the fact when they filmed it, it was during our summer. So they went down there during their winter. So of course there's snow in the Andes and during their winter, and there's not snow in the Rockies in our summer. I live in Colorado. I've seen it snow every month, but July and even in June and August, you get, a couple of flecks. So it's just, It was ridiculous. But it's really, I highly recommend it. It's a long movie. It's about 3 hours.
I wasn't against it.
But knowing it's based on,
I heard it was good. I
think it'll make you appreciate it even more.
Yeah. The other movie I want to talk about,
and Tom Hardy's in it as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Tom Hardy plays the villain, the guy who basically leaves him for dead.
The movie I want to talk about is a Western. It's the most unconventional Western ever. It's called Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch.
Yes.
When I was in Russia, I knew this band pretty well, and they all together, they said it's the greatest movie ever made, ever. Like, it's like people, they were going to bars, they come here, and they tell him, and they would tell me in Russian, like a guy at this bar started crying when he talked about Dead Man. And I hadn't seen it yet. They're like, I can't believe you've not seen this movie. It's incredible. So as soon as I got back from Russia, I was blown away. Have you seen this movie, Kenny?
Let me answer you like this. The night that you and I went together to see the movie Dead Man Walking, there was a poster up for the movie Dead Man, and somebody next to us said, I wonder what that's about. I said, that's the sequel to Dead Man Walking. And I said that. And then the night that we saw, I don't recall the name of this movie. You're going to remember it. It was a movie with Robert De Niro and Edward, where they pull off a heist. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The night that we saw that movie, we're driving home, and you start asking me, have you ever seen Dead Man? I said, I never saw it. So, of course, you forced me against my will to go watch it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I could say 2 in the morning, obviously.
Yeah. And we're watching it, and this one actor in there who's Native American, I'm looking at him going, where do I know this guy from? And you said, where do I know this guy from? And I go, oh, my God, he was in the movie we just saw.
Yes.
The movie with Robert De Niro. And
very good, Kenny.
Yeah. So
Farmer,
I did
the guy's name.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
hey, we got our warning. So we'll have to tie it up.
Okay.
Well, what makes that movie is the soundtrack by Neil Young, the haunting guitar solos. I love the soundtrack more than the movie itself. So
okay.
I don't, but the actors, you got Robert Mitchum, you got Billy Bob Thornton in there with Jared, the guy, the son of, oh God. I forgot his last name now. And then you got Iggy Pop.
Yeah, and it's in black and white too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And there's a movie in the 40s, Steve Kenny, called Nobody. And it's this name they give to a Native American who won't shut up. They call him Nobody. So in the movie, the Native American guy is named in Nobody. So they play on that word.
Oh, okay.
So Iggy Pop and Billy Bob Thornton are fighting over who gets to rape Johnny Depp. And then there's a shootout, and then Billy Bob goes, well, I guess nobody gets you. And when he says that, the guy behind him, he kills Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah. Oh, that is awesome scene.
Wow.
And Johnny Depp is a great actor because they're like playing with his hair, and they're like, you could just tell they're gonna rape him. He's like, how do you get your hair that way? Just lucky, I guess. You can see he's like, he knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And the movie's this whole and although Kenny and I
little vignettes.
Huh?
The movie's kind of like a bunch of little vignettes tied together.
Correct. That's a very good comment, Steve. Yeah. But like Albert Molina plays this priest, and when the Native American walks in, he goes, "Hey, would you like some blankets?" The Native American. That's, if you don't know, that's how we got spread diseases among them. That's how we killed a lot of them with infected smallpox, I believe. Yep. And the movie's just brilliant, beyond brilliant.
And then George McFly is in it too. I forget his.
Crispin Glover is his name.
Yeah, Crispin Glover. Yeah.
He's at the very
okay,
beginning.
guys.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're out of time. So if you got any nominations for our honorary Oscars, now is a good time. Anybody got anything?
I got some. Yeah. For documentaries, this is kind of Western. If you haven't seen the movie Grizzly Man, this is a documentary from Werner Herzog about the bear conservationist Timothy Treadwell, who goes to Alaska, and you can see he probably has some mental issues, and follows his
he has another name. It's called Dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's on the menu.
I've been up in that neighborhood a few times up there in Katmai National Park in Alaska, and it is the home to the highest concentration of brown bears in the world. So very good if you like bears and just outdoor stories. So,
all right.
Quickly, since Steve brought it up, or one of you guys did, I'm going to go with The Menu. A really sick, dark movie. Ray Fiennes should have gotten the Academy Award for it.
Okay.
If you have the right script and the right actor, it's just beautiful. Go ahead, Kenny.
Okay, I'm going to give my honorary Oscar to Richard Kiel, who was in Pale Rider, I mentioned earlier. He was also Jaws in some of the 007 movies. He was also in The Twilight Zone.
Tenements.
It's a cookbook.
Yes.
To Serve Man.
To Serve Man.
Exactly. And he's memorable in everything that he's in.
Longest Yard, right? Clothesline.
Yeah, and even when he's a bad guy, he still has moments where he's a good guy, So you gotta love him when it's all said and done.
Richard Kiel. One day. I got to hang out with him for like 2 hours one day. He's the nicest guy.
Is that right?
I got an autographed picture and everything.
And Paul got me an autographed magazine with him.
Nice.
Oh my God.
I think it's a James Bond magazine, and there's Jaws in it, and signed by Richard Kiel. So thank you.
Nice.
For that.
He was a really good guy. Like, and his hands, I have a big fat head. His hands go all the way around my big, see how mine don't? His hands go all around my big fat head. I was in shock. I was like,
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we got to wrap it up. We're out of time. So for this week, that is going to be the Great Classic Movie Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
Yes, and if you're watching, like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Rock Debate. Until we see you next week, later, Gator.